All right, welcome back to the Didn't Wait podcast. I think it's going to be a good episode today. I'm joined here with Dorsey Ross. Dorsey, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you for being on the show. Dorsey, tell me, where you from?
I am from. I'm originally from Long Island, New York. I lived in Queens most of my life, but right now I live in Westchester, Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia.
Oh, cool. I used to live in York, Pennsylvania for a couple years back in the day. So
Okay.
I know a little bit about Pennsylvania. I'm actually originally from Maryland, so
Okay.
up that way. I live in Tennessee now, but I'm from Maryland. So I
Nice.
know a little bit about that.
Yeah.
So tell me, how long did you live in New York?
I lived in New York for what 44 years, 43 years.
How old are you?
I'm 48,
48.
and
Okay, I just turned 40.
I moved to Pennsylvania in November of 2020.
Okay, how was that move?
It was good. It was interesting. Especially with it being the middle of the pandemic and everything.
Mhm.
The beginning of it actually.
Yeah. So talk. How was your experience with the pandemic?
It wasn't too bad. I mean, I never got anything until I never got COVID until what 2 years ago when I got it.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, I
Wow.
mean, at least not that I know of. I had the 1 week of coughing and everything, but that was like
Hmm.
before anything came of it. So,
Yeah.
you didn't think, oh, let me go and get checked out and go and do the doctor and see what this cough is. What? Why am I having a cough?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think I got it about a year after like the whole thing. I think I got it. Well, maybe 20, 21, 22. I think. Yeah, so it was about a year or two removed from like when everything happened. So, Dorsey, what do you have? Um,
My my disability is called Apert syndrome,
okay.
and it's a birth defect of the hands and the face. It's a congenital birth defect, and when I was born, my forehead was pushed outward, my eyes and nose were pushed back into my head, and my fingers and toes were fused together, meaning I had no
Mhm.
individual movement of them. And and to this day, my toes are still fused together, meaning I have no individual movement of them, but my fingers and everything are separated, and you know
Okay.
and the doctors did operations on my face and on my hands, and they were able to reconstruct my face. Excuse me, reconstruct my face and separate my fingers and everything.
Well, so how many surgeries did you have?
I've had 68 operations over my lifetime, from about,
60?
yeah, 68.
68. Wow. So let's talk about that. Like what the mental, the wear that you have to have 68,
Yeah.
surgeries.
Well, I think for the most part, it started when I was born. My
Hmm.
forehead was fused. I didn't have any type of sore spot or any type of skull opening to allow the brain to grow and allow it to function normally.
Okay.
And the doctors advised my parents that because of that, I would become, brain damaged, and would eventually die if I did not have that operation. So, of course, they said that they would, allow the doctors to operate and allow the doctors to, to do what they needed to do. And thankfully, over all my operations, I did survive, and I did come out of it okay. And I think
Hmm.
as far as the mental awareness of it goes, I think, you know, I mean, until I got older, a lot of the decisions for those operations were made by my parents.
Okay.
And I think until I became, maybe a preteen and then a teenager, I started to make those decisions. I started to talk to the doctors. Hey, what would this operation do for me? You know, how would it improve my life?
Mm-hmm.
How would it make my life better? And then they would explain to me. I was like, okay, let's do it. Let's have this operation to, improve my breathing, or improve my mouth and my teeth to be able to eat better and think of that nature.
I got you. So I'm in a wheelchair myself, so I kind of went through it a little bit myself growing up. And how did how do kids react to you, or like how do they treat you growing up in
Yeah,
elementary, middle school, and high
yeah.
school?
Growing up was very difficult. I went to
Hmm.
a school for people with disabilities on Long
Okay.
Island, New York, and you would think in the school for people with disabilities that it would be a very loving and very caring and very, you know,
Hmm.
open environment and inclusive environment. And it to an extent it was, but there were those
Hmm.
kids, that had other disabilities like myself who would, tease not only myself but tease other kids as well, and would make fun of other kids and myself included. And even on the of the outside world, I would get teased and make fun of and being called monster and freak, you know, get pointed at and get stared at, and why does he look like that? Think of that nature. It doesn't happen as much anymore, but
Yeah.
it still does. On the kid side of
Mm.
it, it still does.
Yeah.
And you have I to the point I understand they haven't learned yet. But
Hmm.
on the flip side of it, it's like, okay, parents, now's the time to
Hmm.
start and, teach your kids that there are going to be people out there that are
Hmm.
going to look different than them.
Yep. I definitely understand that. So how did you overcome that, or how did you get through that?
Well, a lot of it was my faith,
Okay.
my faith in God and my belief in God, and realizing as I got older, as I grew up reading my Bible, that we live in a fallen world, so things happen,
Mm-hmm.
But on the at the same time, I believe that what the Word of God says. I believe that He created me inside my mother's womb. He
Mm-hmm.
knew that although He couldn't, He knew that I would be born with a birth defect, but
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, I also believe that He created me as His masterpiece. That He created me in His image.
Yes. Oh, I would say that like I can see God being in the wheelchair because he created me in His image, so He has to look like me as well. So I see Him in the wheelchair as well. So that brings me great joy and comfort as too. So I definitely agree with what you're saying there, and that's good that you lean on your faith because sometimes that's all we have is our faith, and that's getting us by the love of God to
Absolutely.
bring us out of a situation and things like that. So I'm glad you had him in that. So do you have a career? What do you do?
Well, up until the time COVID happened, I was a traveling itinerant speaker, that
Okay.
slash minister, and I was traveling all across the country, sharing my story about what God did in my life and what I had to overcome in my life. 'Cause I was all traveling to different states. I was down in
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee a couple times. I was down in New Orleans. I was down in you know California, uh, Vegas. I was up and down
Wow.
the Northeast. most of the northern northern states down to Virginia, you know, Maryland a few times as well. And then, COVID happened, and, as we all know, everything got shifted around and turned upside
Yeah.
down.
Hmm.
So, so once I started move to Pennsylvania, I started to, you know, I still did a little bit of traveling once everything started to open up. But then I realized I needed an extra, income. So I went
Hmm.
back and started working in retail, and I work in Target right now.
Target right now. Okay. Yeah. I worked at Walmart a couple times in my life, so
Okay.
I get that. Yeah, I never worked at Target, although I wish I did. I was that experience working at Target.
No comment.
I heard that, man. I heard that. Yeah. I go into Target sometimes, but I like I said, I've always worked at Walmart, so I only knew Walmart. But it's cool. So with like doing the motivational speaking, you say you a minister? Are you
I am.
licensed?
I am an ordained licensed minister.
Okay, so when in your life did you decide or feel like you had a call to step into that role?
Yeah. Well, growing up, I was always going to church, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I started going to youth group when I was younger. And the youth group where I went, they loved me. They accepted me.
Mm-hmm.
They cared on me. They encouraged me. The kids loved, the teenagers, my friends loved me. And so as I got older, I started to, you know, go into more of a leadership role in the youth group, and I started to encourage them. I started to speak into their life, as and I had this one meeting with one of the leaders at the time, and he said to me, Dorsey, I see you, standing on stage, traveling around, sharing your story. I was
Okay.
like, oh, that's nice, thank you very much, I appreciate that, just kind of brushed it off
Mm-hmm.
because I have a speech impediment, and
Mm-hmm.
I had to go for speech classes in elementary and even in high school, and it's a lot better now, but you can still hear it at times, and so I didn't think of myself as being able to travel around and speak. So long story short, I felt like I felt like being a youth minister or youth pastor was what I felt God wanted me to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to community college and I went to Bible college, and nothing ever really opened up. None of the doors really opened up for me to go into, you know, become a youth minister at a church.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went to my home church after I finished college, they gave me the opportunity to share my story,
Mm-hmm.
and that was when I felt like, hey, maybe this is something that I could do. So
Mm-hmm.
I got the video and my promo stuff together, and I started cold calling pastors and churches, and they started to invite me in and invite me to come and speak.
Oh, that's amazing. You talk about cold calling. How's that experience? Like, I just certain things when you say I want to know more because I know people don't like doing cold calling. People don't like to do a lot of those things.
Yeah,
But how important are those things? You say you feel like this is what God wants you to do. So like, you still got to put the work in and do the work. But it's just how important or how did you feel about doing cold call and opportunity? Of rejection. because everybody's not going to say yes to you.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Mm,
that's one thing I learned over time,
mm,
and over the years, that not everyone is gonna say, say come,
mm,
especially when it's people that you know, or people that you know of, you know,
mm,
and you think,
mm.
when you connect with them, be like, yeah, they'll have me. They know me. They know
Yeah.
who I am. They know my name. They have, they know people that I'm connected with. Cause they'll
Yep.
have me, and they're like, no, we're not gonna have you. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Or
I mean,
even pastors that I knew,
mm,
from my previous church, that I thought would have me,
mm,
who are now pastors, who I thought would have me, never really had me. So it was difficult, it was difficult, dealing with that rejection, and dealing, with, not getting even called back from, hey, thank you so very much, we received your information, you know
mm.
but at this time we're not gonna, have you come in, and whatnot. But it was something at that time that I knew that that God wanted me to do, and I felt the calling by God to do that at that time. So I kept persevering, and I never gave up on it.
Yeah. I know you talked about like he sees you standing in front of people and sharing your story and things like that, and you kind of blocked it off. Like so, that's like how do you get past your self limiting beliefs, um, or
Yeah,
rejecting yourself before people get to reject you,
I'm sorry.
or like say the sense of like rejecting yourself before people get the actual chance to reject you.
Right. No, I think it was, over time I started
Mm,
realizing that it's not, I can't worry about what other people say about me, or what other
mm,
people say to me. I still have to do what it is that, I myself want to do, but also what it is that God wants me to do as well.
mm. I feel that. And so what I know, like speaking in front of people probably is a hard thing, but like, what are some of the hardest things that you had to deal with in life? If you don't mind sharing.
No, absolutely not. No, well, it was definitely the operations.
mm,
It was definitely the pain afterwards of the
mm,
operations. I had my mouth wired shut twice, because
wow.
they would have to, break my jaw, twice, to bring my jaw forward. Because as you get older, the bones start to grow, and
Yeah.
whatnot. So they would have to reconstruct their face. They would have to break the jaw, bring the jaw forward. Reset it. Put pins in it and whatnot, and then you know um wire the mouth shut, and then so I had to deal with that twice, and realizing after an operation that you know, that they cut all your hair off, because they had to, you know, make a line, from one ear to the other, to open up the skull, to,
Mm,
reconstruct, the forehead and everything. So you look in the mirror and you're like, wait, where's my hair?
mm.
Is my hair going to grow back?
Yeah, that seems like it's a tough time, and I've been through a couple surgeries. I think my hardest. It's probably my last surgery. I think I was 14, 15 years old. I had spinal fusion. To put the rods in your back. And I think that was my hardest surgery, and it was tough. I had to go to rehab and things like that, but did it. But I lost a lot of mobility from already not having like a lot of mobility in the first place, losing like a lot of like back and stuff. So with the rod, so that was probably my hardest surgery I've been through. It's quite not like having your jaw moved and things like that. I mean, it's
Right.
painful, but I'm on a lot of pain. I mean, obviously you are too, but like I don't know if I've been through a lot of surgeries, not especially not 68. I don't even think it's been like maybe five at the most. I don't know, but yeah. So as well, I definitely understand that. So are you good with pain? I know your pain tolerance is good.
Yeah, it's good. I have pain here and there, but it's not. I control it. I control it pretty well, and I do really well with the pain tolerance.
Yes, sir. I like that a lot. Um, so like you're not traveling and speaking now. Do you have any other ways like books or you do a podcast or anything yourself
I do.
to
I
get
do
you?
my own podcast. It is
Mm,
called the Dorsey Ross Show. It is
okay,
on all major, podcast listings, and I
okay,
actually do have my own book as well, called
cool.
Overcomer: Discovering
Okay,
God's Plan Against All Odds. And you can find the ebook and Kindle version of that on Amazon.
yeah, I will have all that listed when I do the show notes. How was writing a book?
It was interesting because it's actually two editions. The first edition came out in 2016,
Okay,
and it took me several years to write it. It took me like 3 years to write it and then finish it and find a editor and everything. And then a few years later, I decided to do a little add-on to it. So I did
mm-hmm.
that, and I found a different editor and everything. So I got that published through Amazon.
Okay, cool. I like that. So you say you do a podcast, right?
Yes,
So what? Talk to me about your podcast. What is it about?
it is a interview based podcast, and I
Okay,
have people of faith come on to share their story of overcoming and perseverance and things of that nature. All different topics, all different people. Um, you know,
okay,
authors. Sports athletes. Moms, dads. Different things of that nature. All different variations of people that come on to share their story.
how long have you been doing that?
Actually, I've been doing it since 2020. Right,
Oh wow, yeah.
yeah, right. Doing, right when right when after the pandemic happened, somebody actually interviewed me, and for
Mm-hmm.
their podcast, like, man, that was really fun. I really enjoy doing that. Having somebody interview me,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, I wonder, if that's something that, I could do. Everything's closed at the moment, nothing's
Mm-hmm.
going on. I needed another hobby to do. And
Yeah.
so I was like, well, let me, research it and look into it and see what, comes of it. And it started to, start off slow a little bit, and now it's steamrolling, and it's being, consistent, and it's doing really well.
Yeah, I've actually, I've been doing a podcast since 2021. I think it was March of 2021 that's I started. I was actually doing this podcast with a buddy, and he kind of took a step back, but this was kind of my baby, and I wanted it's like I treat it as a ministry and things like that. So I've been doing this since March 2021. But I enjoy being a guest on people's show. Like I love podcasting, but I love like getting the opportunity to be guests on the show. And I've had friends that have had podcasts have me on. People, I've did it a couple times, and I think I may try to start actually getting myself out there to be guest and um, other people's things because I think it's a fun. It's fun for me, and it's fun. It's fun. I enjoy telling my story as well. So
Sure.
um, yeah, so it's like I don't get it. I don't always get the chance to like tell my story on my podcast because it's for other people. I chime in at things that what goes on in my life sometimes, but it's not like sharing my story. So
Right.
I definitely get that, man. So, how do you outside of like your faith, like how do you stay so positive? Like what in life makes you happy?
I think having friends, obviously
Mm,
having friends, good friends that surround me and that are have been connected with me for a long time, that help me to stay encouraged and help me to stay positive,
mm.
and my family as well. My dad's still alive. My dad's 94.
Oh wow.
Just turned 94 a week ago, and
Mm.
so he helped me to stay positive and stay connected, and do the right things and whatnot.
Yeah, I got you. I didn't even ask. Did you have any siblings?
I do. I have one older sister, and I have one sister that passed away in 2014.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. How was your relationship with your sister?
We're good. Yeah, we have a good relationship.
That's good. Yeah, I'm the oldest of five, so like for the longest time, it was just me and my brother. I'm the oldest, and it was him. He's 2 years younger than me, and then it's like a 15, 16, and a 17-year gap. So,
Oh wow,
yeah,
that sounds like me and my sister. My my sister, my middle sister, who passed away, she was 16
Mm.
years older than I was,
Oh wow.
and my
Mm.
older sister is 21 years younger, or excuse me, older than me.
Oh wow. Okay.
So I was the
Wow.
baby surprise, fluke
Yeah.
of the family.
Yes, sir. Yes,
'Cause
sir.
my mom was 41 and my dad was 45 when they had me.
Oh wow. Wow. Um.
So they were not expecting to have another baby, and my mom started to gain weight, and she thought it was some type of tumor or some type of issue going on with her with her body, and she went to the doctor, and the doctor was like, "Well, you're well, you're in good health, but you have a baby growing inside of you."
I heard that. That's funny. Well, I think I'm kind of done. I appreciate you being on the show. Before I go, though, do you have any questions to ask me, or I could turn the interview over to you for a second if you want to.
Where are you? And then you said you were down in Tennessee. Where are you from in Tennessee?
I live in Cleveland, Tennessee. It's a
Okay.
little suburb right outside of Chattanooga.
Okay.
Been there. I actually went to school out here at Lee University. I moved away for a couple of years to York, Pennsylvania, then decided that Cleveland's where I wanted to be. That was home, so I moved back here. And I've been here ever since 2015, December
Okay.
2015. So this December coming up, I've been back 10 years.
Okay.
So I like it and made a life out here.
Yeah. Yeah. I got friends up in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Okay, yeah, I've been up there. I had a buddy that went to UTK up there, and I have one of my friends is up there now. The one that started this podcast with me, he's in Knoxville now. So I got to get up there and see him and visit him. Do you go up to Knoxville a lot?
A couple of times, not that often.
Okay, yeah, it's different being up from the north and coming to the south.
Right. Yep.
Yes, sir. So, but I like it though. It's like I said, it's home now. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah. So, is there anything else like so? If you want to leave me with a bit of like knowledge
Sure.
or like a
Absolutely.
quote or something.
Yeah. Absolutely. I was just saying, to the your listeners and your audience that will listen to this later, whatever you're dealing with, whatever you're going through, whatever you're facing in life, don't give up. Don't give up. Know that there are people that are there to help you, to surround you,
Mm,
to encourage you, and know that there are people also out there that are struggling as well. So you are not alone in whatever you are dealing with and whatever you are facing, and know that
yes,
there's
sir.
someone out there that overcome a lot in his life as well, and
Hmm.
that they can reach out to me on Instagram and Facebook if they want to connect and they want to talk and, just be encouraged.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.